So with that being said, we're going to move on to the next segment, and I'll be sharing my thoughts and my summary of what PBC has done this year in the sport of boxing. So I'll be evaluating PBC's first year under the Amazon banner. I'll be sharing my thoughts on PBC having a good year, a bad year, or a disappointing year in the calendar year of 2024. So with that being said, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. The year that PBC had with Amazon Prime under the Amazon Prime banner, they were better off with staying with Showtime Boxing. Why did Showtime Boxing have to go extinct for what PBC has done thus far with Amazon Prime? Because Showtime Boxing should still be around. And PBC under Amazon Prime did absolutely nothing in the calendar year 2024. I mean, there were several stars missing in the calendar year 2024 per PBC. They barely had any of their stars compete in a boxing ring. Gervonta Davis only had one fight. David Benavidez only had one fight. Stephen Fulton only had one fight. Earl Spence had 0 fights. Jermell and Jamal Charlo fought a total of 0 times. And if it wasn't for Canelo Alvarez fighting twice for the PBC for the Amazon Prime banner this year, they only would have had a total of 2 pay-per-view cards instead of 4, because Canelo was a part of 2 PBC pay-per-view cards in the calendar year 2024. So this has been a disappointing year to only have 4 pay-per-view cards. You should have done way more with the Amazon Prime, with PBC having Amazon Prime under the banner for their first year. I was expecting way more, and we got let down, because why did Showtime Boxing have to go extinct based off of what PBC Boxing did this year with Amazon Prime? They were better off doing it with Showtime Boxing. And I do believe they had 1 non-pay-per-view card, PBC. I could be wrong about that, under Amazon Prime, and that was the Tim Tszyu fight in October when he got knocked out. Other than that, what have they really done this year? I mean, they got so many stars under the PBC banner. Why are we not seeing them fight more? And I should also say Caleb Plant only fought 1 time as well, a notable star that PBC has. So, I mean, we're supposed to be seeing these guys at least get in the ring twice a year. So that's definitely got to change for 2025. These active fighters that PBC has to get in the ring way more for 2025. If PBC is going to survive under the Amazon banner. If that doesn't happen, then Amazon can easily kick PBC to the curb, and then the PBC boxing family has nowhere to go or air their shows or air their network. They've been through several networks over the years. They spent time with Fox, Showtime Boxing, now Amazon Prime. Eventually, you got to look yourself in the mirror if you're PBC and Al Heyman and say, hey, our product isn't working. We need to get our fighters out there that put on stellar cards and stellar events for boxing fans like myself and people out there watching and listening. So I will say a positive for what PBC has done with Amazon Prime, even though they only have 4 pay-per-view cards. The quality standpoint, the PBC Amazon cards, they have tried to make the fights compelling and competitive. I will say that, because in the springtime, originally you were supposed to have Tim Tszyu versus Keith Thurman in the first fight, which a lot of people didn't want to see. So when Keith Thurman had to pull out of the fight due to an injury he sustained in camp, you had Sebastian Fundora and Tim Tszyu fight each other. Sebastian Fundora taking the call and accepting to fight Tim Tszyu on a 12-day notice. I gave them a lot of credit for giving us a 50-50 fight at the super welterweight division. I also give them a lot of credit for lining up Rolly Romero versus Isaac Cruz for the WBA super lightweight title in the co-main event of that card. I will say, now that I think about it, Gervonta Davis's card that he had against Frank Martin was probably the best PBC card that they had under Amazon Prime, because what they did that night, looking back at the card, they had Gervonta Davis versus Frank Martin. That was a fun 50-50 fight to a lot of boxing fans out there that aren't casuals. You had David Benavidez make his debut to the light heavyweight division, fighting a former world champion Govskick. That could have went either way. Gary Antoine Russell versus Alberto Paulo Pulu. I am so sorry if I pronounced his name wrong, but that was probably the best card that Amazon Prime had with the PBC all year. That came in the summertime, but they are very lucky that Canelo Alvarez did not shy away from Al Heyman's deal, because if you guys followed the news the entire year, Canelo Alvarez was about to walk away from the PBC unless Al Heyman gave him this money. He was going to fight over in the Zone for Matchroom Boxing, Eddie Hearn, for Cinco de Mayo weekend and Mexican Independence Day this weekend, or this year in the sport of boxing. Obviously, that's the 2 dates that Canelo Alvarez likes to fight on moving forward with his career. So, again, if Canelo didn't do that, you only would have produced 2 pay-per-view cards this year, which is alarming. And we're in the month of December, and the last PBC Amazon pay-per-view card was in September. So, again, things like this, you got to have a consideration when you're thinking about your boxing fans, when you think about all these stars that you have in your arsenal to give fans these big-time fights. These things got to happen if you're going to make Amazon Prime happy moving forward with this collaboration. So, 2025 has to be a better year for the PBC. February 1st, they are going to start off the year with a bang. That David Benavidez versus David Morrell card is going to be pretty special, in my opinion. I think that has the potential to be one of the best boxing cards of the year. I think David Benavidez versus David Morrell is a exciting fight at the light heavyweight division as well. That should be good. But I do have one more question, a couple questions to close up before we move on to the next segment. Where the hell has Al Heyman been? Because Al Heyman, yes, we all know Al Heyman is not a guy that likes to be in front of the camera. He likes to do the work behind the scenes, yes. But where the hell is he at? Because some of these PBC fights, they were already supposed to happen, have fallen behind schedule. Gervonta Davis versus Lamont Roach was supposed to happen December 14th. Yeah, the revenue, where the location of fight and the arena, yeah, that's a problem. But you could have easily fixed that for a star, the caliber level of Gervonta Davis, one of the faces of boxing. What was the problem? The money, paying out the fighters? We still have no update on when Errol Spence versus Sebastian Fundora is supposed to happen. That fight was rumored to happen in January. Looks like that's not going to be happening. And that doesn't have an official date, Errol Spence versus Sebastian Fundora, even though the fight has been built up for nearly an entire year when Errol Spence got in the ring after Sebastian Fundora defeated Tim Tszyu in March, April. So, and then Gervonta Davis versus Lamont Roach gets pushed back 4 months? 4 months from December, and now the fight's supposed to take place March 1st? So PBC's got to get it together. If they're scrapping for money, you got to put it together these big-time events so you have the money to pay these fighters out. Continue to have big events in the sport of boxing, because if not, you're going to fall behind. Amazon Prime's not going to want this collaboration anymore. Then PBC's looking for another platform to have their product on. It just becomes a mess. But in reality, I don't think Showtime should have had to suffer and to go extinct like HBO Boxing did. But these are the circumstances, and PBC Boxing with Amazon Prime has not lived up to the hype and expectations. With only 4 pay-per-view cards, they got to step it up in 2025. But those are my thoughts on PBC's year, their first year under the banner of Amazon Prime.